When we think about the 100+ years of Montessori work, often we speak about what an intuitive physician she was, what an intuitive observer she became. We have used her intuition, but not really understanding where that is coming from. She practiced at a period of time when her main tool for diagnosis was observation. She had no neuroscience to back up what she was observing occurring in children. Today, we do have the neuroscience to back up a lot of what we do. I'm going to just use a couple of examples to illustrate this. In any level of Montessori work, in any level of child development, we know that it is critical for a child to repeat something over and over and over. How much repetition depends on the child, and what they are interested in doing, and their developing skills. But we know now neurologically that as a child repeats the same activity over and over and over, it strengthens neurological firing patterns. So those firing patterns become memories, neurological, motorical memories. And those memories will not be set down if a child does something one time, just as they wouldn't for us. We create the same kinds of firing patterns by doing something over and over and over. Unfortunately, for adults, we have to repeat it many more times than a young child does. But that idea of repetition, which has been a part of our pedagogy forever, is now deeply supported by neuroscience. Another example that comes strongly to mind, and I remember thinking about this a long time ago, very early in my practice, was the whole concept of what we know of as a 3-period lesson. We know that she took this idea from Edward Sagan, who developed the technique when working with children with severe challenges. And there was a difference in how she started and how it ended up being. Originally, she took Sagan's work as it was, when he would use 2 elements with these children with challenges. It later morphed into using 3 basic elements at a time, but contrasting elements. And why does that work? This 3-period lesson is a tool that we use to teach, primarily to teach words, so that children can store those words in long-term memory. We know it works. We've always known it works. But how does it work? And now neurologically, we know how it works. And there are 2 aspects, to me anyway, that neurologically point to why it works. One is a multisensory approach. So when children are using as many senses as they can use, experiencing and exploring a concept, an article, an object, then there are many more different areas of the brain that are firing to create those memories. The more areas, the more senses we use, the stronger the firing pattern. In this 3-period lesson, there's that introductory period where we just, for example, give a name. But then the second period is the longest period. And there's a reason why. Neurologically, there's a reason why. I also think that understanding and doing the second period comes down to the art and science of 3-period lessons. If you cannot do an effective second period, or if you rush it, or if you don't give each child enough experience with the objects, it doesn't work, right? So we know that along with this multi-sensory approach, we need the repetition, the time factor, which comes with the second period. And in the second period, the adult is giving the word. The child is making the corresponding attachment to the word, the object to the word, or the picture to the word. And that involves some movement, but there's a lot of repetition that has to go on. And the child has to have their hands on it. They have to manipulate the things and move them about. And every child has to be engaged. This lesson can be given to one child, or it can be given to a very small group of 2, 3, 4 children, because every child needs to have a possibility of manipulating the objects. This second period needs to extend long enough to solidify those firing patterns and thereby storing it in long-term memory. And then the third period, as you know, it comes when we ask the child, what do we call this? Or what's the name of this? Or do you remember what this is? So that the child now is able to give us back the name. And when a child touches the object or holds a picture and engages those senses, it brings up, via these firing patterns, all the information they know about that object or that thing. At a 0 to 3 level with the 3-period lesson, we don't use the third period initially with children. Some children aren't verbal, but they can certainly point to objects. They may not be able to articulate the word yet, but they can recognize it and point to the object. And some children, if you put too much attention to them, they kind of recede back into themselves and become a little passive, and they don't want to bring it forward. But as children become more and more comfortable in their spoken language abilities, you'll hear the words come out. And certainly before they move into a casa environment, where they're going to encounter a third period, we would want to engage them in a third period. This has worked so long based on Montessori's intuition, and now we know neurologically there's a very sound underpinning of that 3-period lesson.